He slapped her in front of hundreds of people, and the sound was sharp enough to slice through the wedding music, through the laughter, through every lie my family had ever told about us. My sister Nyla just froze, her bouquet slipping from her hands as gasps rippled across the hall. For one horrifying moment, no one moved. Not the bridesmaids in their shimmering champagne dresses, not the guests clutching their phones to capture her perfect day, not even my parents sitting in the front row pretending to be pillars of class. I wasn't there, but I saw it all before breakfast. Someone's shaky recording had hit the internet like wildfire, and by the time I poured my coffee, millions of strangers had witnessed what I'd been living in silence for years, that the golden daughter of Cynthia and Sinclair was a mirror, polished on the outside but cracked beyond repair on the inside. And for the first time, it wasn't me being humiliated. It was them. If you're enjoying this, please subscribe and share. Your support keeps the stories coming. I wish I could say I felt pity when I saw the footage, but all I felt was the weight of irony. My family had spent decades worshiping appearances, arranging our lives like furniture for guests who never stayed long. Nyla, with her perfect smile and blessed energy, had been the crown jewel of their delusion. I was the quiet one, the practical one, the one who paid bills while they planned parties. When she announced her engagement to some finance guy named Drew, I was expected to smile from the sidelines. Then came the text from my mother. "We're keeping it intimate. Bella, you understand." That was her polite way of saying, "You're not invited." I remember sitting on my couch, staring at the message until my vision blurred. Realizing they had finally said it out loud, I wasn't family, just a wallet with a pulse. I deleted the text and told myself I didn't care. But when the wedding day came, I kept scrolling through the tagged photos anyway, pretending it didn't sting to see them smiling without me. And then the slap. One motion, one crack in the illusion, and their empire of perfection crumbled in real time. My phone lit up nonstop that morning. Calls, texts, even emails. Mom, Dad, unknown numbers. I ignored them all. The last thing I wanted was to hear her voice saying, "Bella, we need you." Because that's how it always went. They break something, I fix it. They lie, I clean it up. I tried to ignore the chaos until Dad showed up at my door unannounced. His tie crooked, his eyes red-rimmed, his pride left somewhere in the wreckage of that viral clip. "Bella," he said, his voice trembling like a confession, "we need your help." The irony almost made me laugh. They hadn't needed me when Nyla was twirling in designer gowns and hosting rehearsal dinners. But the minute her perfect world cracked, I was suddenly their emergency contact. He stepped inside without waiting for permission, pacing my small living room like it was a courtroom. I watched him silently, wondering what performance this was going to be. Guilt, manipulation, or crocodile tears. "Your mother's with Nyla," he started, his hands trembling. "It's bad. The media's everywhere. We're trying to handle it quietly." I crossed my arms, leaning against the counter. "Why are you telling me this, Dad? You made it clear I wasn't family enough to attend." His jaw tightened. "Don't start, Bella. This isn't about that." "It's exactly about that," I said. "You chose them, always." He looked at me then, really looked, like he was seeing me for the first time. "It's not just about the video," he whispered. "There's something else you need to know." My stomach turned. "What do you mean?" He sat down, shoulders sagging, the weight of years pressing down on him. "We took out a home equity line of credit. For repairs at first, but your mother, she wanted to help Nyla with the wedding. We used your information." I froze. "You what?" He didn't look at me. "We didn't mean for it to go this far. You've always been responsible, Bella. You have good credit. You pay on time. You stole my identity," I cut in, my voice rising. "You committed fraud. You used me to fund her wedding?" He flinched, rubbing his temples like the problem was my reaction, not his betrayal. "We were going to pay it back. We thought we could cover the payments until after the wedding." "How much?" I demanded. He hesitated. $195,000. My breath caught. I felt my pulse hammering in my throat, the room spinning. "And the payments?" He looked at me, shame flickering for a second before he said it. The money you've been sending every month. The 100, we used it to pay the loan. The air left my lungs. Every helping payment I'd made out of guilt, every time they'd said, "We're struggling, Bella," had been for this. For Nyla's fantasy wedding, for the same people who'd decided I didn't deserve a seat at the table. "Get out," I whispered. He blinked. "Bella, please, get out." My voice was sharper than I'd ever heard it, and it startled us both. He hesitated, then stood, defeated. But as he reached the door, headlights flashed through the window. My mother's car, of course. The Queen had arrived. I could already picture her expression. Cool, poised, ready to turn my fury into a family misunderstanding. I'd played this scene before. I just didn't know I was finally going to end it. She entered without knocking, her perfume filling the air like smoke before a fire. "Bella, sweetheart," she began, her tones syrupy and rehearsed. "We didn't want you to find out this way. Things got complicated." I laughed bitterly. "Complicated? You stole my name, my credit, and probably half my sanity. That's not complicated, Mom. That's criminal." "Oh, stop being dramatic," she said, brushing her coat sleeve. "It was a family decision. We all benefit from each other's sacrifices. Except only one of us keeps sacrificing," I shot back. Her lips tightened. "You've always been so ungrateful. We gave you everything." "No," I said. "You took everything. There's a difference." Dad tried to step between us, muttering something about keeping the peace, but I was done keeping anything. Years of swallowing pain rose like a tide, and for once I let it flood out. "You didn't invite me because you were ashamed of me, right? Because I'm not glamorous enough? Because I work a normal job instead of chasing men with bank accounts?" My mother's expression flickered, a crack in her porcelain calm. "We just didn't want drama, Bella." "And how's that working out?" I said, gesturing toward the phone buzzing on the table, no doubt filled with notifications about the viral video. Her silence told me everything. I walked to the coffee table, grabbed the stack of mail I'd been ignoring, and pulled out a few letters with unfamiliar return addresses. I hadn't opened them before, but now I tore them open one by one, bank statements, payment notices, all addressed to me but listing their address, their names as co-signers. I tossed them onto the table like evidence at trial. "You forged my signature," I said. "You lied on federal documents." My father's face went gray. "Bella, please, we can fix this." "No," I said coldly. "You can't fix this. You broke it." Mom exhaled, dropping the act. "We did what we had to do. You think money grows on trees? We were drowning in bills, trying to keep a roof over your father's head, and Nyla deserved a proper wedding." "So you stole from the daughter who actually worked for what she had," I said. "You used me because you thought I wouldn't fight back." She opened her mouth to retort, but I stepped closer, my voice low and steady. "You're right about one thing, Mom. I was the quiet one. But not anymore." Her eyes narrowed, but before she could respond, my phone buzzed again. A message from an unknown number. I glanced at it. A photo. A bank transfer receipt. From Nyla. For $500. The message read, "I'll start paying you back soon." I didn't know what they did. "Please don't hate me." My breath caught, but before I could reply, my mother snatched the phone from my hand. "Don't you dare involve her in this," she hissed. "She's been through enough." "Enough?" I said, pulling the phone back. "You mean getting caught on camera with her violent husband? Maybe she should finally face reality too." The room went silent. For a moment, I thought I saw something like fear in my mother's eyes. Not of me, but of losing control. "You wouldn't ruin this family," she said. "Not after everything we've built." "Built?" I whispered. "You mean the lies? The debt? The fake smiles?" I turned toward the door and opened it wide. "You should go before I call the police." My father hesitated, his face full of regret, but Mom's pride wouldn't let her move. "You'll regret this," she said quietly. "Family is forever." "Not this kind," I replied. "Not anymore." She walked out first, her heels clicking like a metronome for my heartbeat. My father lingered in the doorway, looking at me with something between sorrow and relief. "There's more you need to know," he said softly. "About what we use the rest of the money for?" My pulse jumped. "What do you mean, the rest?" He swallowed hard. "It wasn't just the wedding, Bella. There's something else. Something your mother hid from both of us." The words hung in the air like thunder before a storm, and as the door shut behind him, I realized my family's betrayal had only just begun. He left those words hanging like smoke, and for a moment I couldn't breathe. Something my mother hid from both of us. The sentence replayed again and again in my head until the silence in my house felt heavier than the betrayal itself. I stood in the middle of the living room surrounded by the wreckage of everything I thought was family. Bank papers, unpaid bills, the echo of their excuses still clinging to the air. For years I had believed that loyalty could fix anything, that being good and dependable would earn me love. But that night, staring at those documents, I realized love without honesty is just manipulation wrapped in sentimentality. My phone buzzed again, another message from Nyla. "He's gone," it said. "Drew left after the video. Mom says you hate me, but please, can I come over?" I stared at the screen, my fingers trembling. Part of me wanted to ignore her, to let her live in the mess she'd built with our parents. But another part, the same part that had once helped her study, bought her first laptop, and defended her every time she messed up, still couldn't stand to see her destroyed. I typed back a single line. "Come if you want, but I'm done cleaning up for anyone." When she arrived, she didn't look like the girl from the glossy photos. Her hair was messy, her eyes swollen, and her perfect white manicure was chipped to nothing. She stood on my porch like a stranger, holding a duffel bag and a look of defeat. "You really saw the video, didn't you?" she whispered. "The whole world did," I said flatly, stepping aside to let her in. She walked in slowly, looking around my small, modest house, and for the first time, she seemed to realize how much of my life she'd ignored. "You live alone?" she asked quietly. "Yeah, you'd know that if anyone ever visited." She looked down, shame flickering in her eyes. "I didn't know about the loan, Bella, I swear. Mom told me you offered to help." I laughed, a bitter sound. "That's convenient." "Please," she said, her voice cracking. "I didn't know. I thought they had money from the insurance settlement." I froze. "What settlement?" Her face went pale. "You don't know?" My pulse quickened. "Know what, Nyla?" She hesitated, biting her lip. "Dad's heart attack 3 years ago. It wasn't as simple as they said. There was an insurance payout. A big one. But Mom said you didn't need to know because you wouldn't handle it responsibly. She used it to pay off her credit cards and some of Dad's medical bills, and she said the rest was for the house repairs." "I guess it wasn't." My stomach twisted. "How much?" "Almost 200,000. The number hit me like a punch. That was almost the same amount as the fraudulent loan. So they drained one fortune and stole another." I walked to the window, gripping the frame until my knuckles turned white. "Nyla, they've been using me for years. You too, maybe. But it ends now." She nodded weakly, tears spilling over. "I thought marrying Drew would finally make them proud. He made it sound like he loved me for who I was, but all he cared about was what our family looked like on paper. And when the cameras were gone, he showed you who he really was," I said quietly. She nodded again, sobbing harder. For a moment, despite everything, I felt a flicker of pity. But pity wasn't the same as forgiveness. "You need to tell me everything," I said. "Every account, every transfer, every name they used. If Mom hid something else, I'm finding it." She hesitated. "Bella, there's one more thing. When I went to the bank to close my joint account with Drew, the clerk said there was another account, one I'd never opened. It had Mom's name and yours listed. She must have forged your signature again. I think that's where the insurance money went." My heart pounded. "Do you have the paperwork?" She nodded, pulling a crumpled folder from her bag. Inside were copies of statements showing deposits, withdrawals, wire transfers, all leading to one final transaction. $48,000 moved into a property investment under my parents' names 2 months ago. What property? I asked. She shook her head. I don't know, but Mom's been talking about some land outside town. Said it was the family's safety net. The phrase made me nauseous. Safety net, I repeated. That's what she called stealing my life. I spent the next hour combing through every page, every receipt, tracing the money like a detective piecing together a crime scene. The more I uncovered, the colder I felt. My parents hadn't just stolen. They'd planned, forged, and lied. And they'd used my sense of duty as their weapon. I'm reporting it, I said finally. Nyla's head snapped up. What? Identity theft, fraud, every charge I can find. They've crossed every line. You can't, she whispered. It'll destroy them. They destroyed me first. She covered her face, sobbing into her hands. Please don't make me choose between you and them. You don't have to, I said, gathering the papers. They already did that for you. The next morning, I walked into the local bank with a folder full of evidence and a heart full of resolve. The clerk looked nervous as soon as I handed over the documents. These signatures aren't yours? She asked. Not even close. Within an hour, they had flagged multiple fraudulent accounts and promised to escalate the matter. I left feeling both lighter and terrified, because once the truth came out, there'd be no going back. That evening, as the sun dipped low, my mother showed up again. No warning this time. No fake smile. Just a storm in heels. What did you do? She demanded, slamming the door behind her. The bank called. Do you have any idea what you've done to this family? You mean what you did, I said calmly. I just told the truth. You stupid, ungrateful girl, she snapped. Do you think this will make you happy? Watching your parents lose everything? No, I said softly. I think it'll make me free. She froze, fury flickering in her eyes. We made you who you are, Bella. Every good thing in your life came from us. No, I said. Every good thing in my life came despite you. She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper. You don't know what you're doing. There are things you don't understand. Then explain them. For a moment, she looked almost afraid. Then her expression hardened. That property, the one we bought, it's not just land. It's part of your grandfather's estate. The one your father was supposed to inherit years ago. But it was under dispute, tied up in probate. I used your information to secure it before your uncle could. It was supposed to be ours. I stared at her, stunned. So you forged my name to steal from your own family too? It was ours by right, she shouted. Your grandfather promised it to us. Your uncle cheated us out of it. I was just taking back what belonged to you. Don't you dare spin this like some noble act, I said. You didn't do this for me. You did it to keep control, to make sure no one ever had more than you. Her lips trembled. I did what I had to do. You always do, I said. And you always leave the wreckage for me to clean up. The silence that followed was sharp, unbearable. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. If you go through with this, if you press charges, you won't just destroy us. You'll destroy Nyla too. Her name's on that property. She'll lose everything. My heart lurched. You made her a co-signer? It was the only way, she said, her voice softening, manipulative. I couldn't do it alone. She needed to be part of it. I looked at her, realizing she had trapped us both in her web of deceit. You're unbelievable, I whispered. You've spent your entire life making sure no one could escape you, not even your own daughters. She looked at me with something almost like pity. You'll thank me one day. Then she walked out, her perfume lingering like poison in the air. I stood there shaking, torn between rage and despair. Nyla was innocent in this, at least this part. But if I pushed forward, she'd go down with them. I paced the room, my thoughts spiraling. I wanted justice, but I didn't want her destroyed. There had to be another way. Maybe I could expose my parents without dragging her into the legal mess. Maybe I could make them pay in another way, one that would finally end their control. The next day, I called my father. Meet me at the old house, I said. We're going to fix this. He sounded tired, broken. Bella, your mother, I don't care. Be there at 6. When I arrived, the sun was setting over the cracked driveway, the paint on the porch peeling like old lies. The house smelled like dust and regret. My father sat in his old chair, looking smaller than I remembered. You were right, he said quietly. I should have stopped her years ago, but I was afraid. She always made me feel like I owed her. We all did, I said. But it ends tonight. He looked up, confusion flickering across his face. What do you mean? I pulled the folder from my bag and set it on the table. You're going to sign a transfer deed. That side property? You'll sell it to me. Market value. The proceeds can go toward repaying what you took. It won't cover everything, but it's a start. And it's legal. He hesitated. She'll never agree. Then you sign it without her, I said. You said you wanted to make it right. Here's your chance. He stared at the papers for a long time, then picked up the pen. His hand shook as he wrote his name, like each stroke was cutting through years of guilt. When he finished, I felt something loosen inside me, a knot I hadn't realized I'd been carrying. Thank you, I said softly. For once. He nodded, his eyes glistening. You deserved better, Bella. I'm sorry it took me this long to see it. As I left, the air outside felt cleaner, lighter. But when I reached my car, I saw a shadow move near the trees, a figure watching from the corner of the yard. The silhouette was unmistakable. My mother. She'd seen everything. And from the look on her face, she wasn't done fighting. She was standing under the old oak tree like some ghost from a memory I'd tried to bury, her silhouette sharp against the fading light, her eyes glinting with a fury that no apology could ever smother. My mother didn't speak at first. She just stared at me, at the papers in my hand, at the car waiting behind me like an escape I'd finally earned. Then she stepped forward, her heels sinking into the dirt, and said in that calm, poisonous tone I'd known all my life, "So this is what it feels like to betray your own blood." I didn't flinch. "No," I said. "This is what it feels like to finally stop betraying myself." She laughed, soft and bitter. "You think you're free now? You think a signature and a deed make you clean? You've humiliated this family, Bella. You've made a mockery of your sister, your father, and me. You did that yourselves," I said. "I just stopped hiding it." The wind picked up, carrying the faint scent of rain, and for a moment I saw her expression flicker. Not anger this time, but something rawer, almost fear. "You don't understand what you've done," she whispered. "You've taken away everything we built." "You mean everything you stole," I said. "And no, Mom, I understand perfectly." She took another step closer, her voice trembling now. "I did all of this for you girls. To keep something in the family, to make sure you were protected. You did it to protect your ego," I snapped. "You couldn't stand the thought of anyone else being in control. Not Dad, not Nyla, not me." For the first time, she didn't argue. She just looked at me like she didn't recognize who I'd become. Maybe she didn't. The obedient daughter who used to nod and apologize was gone. The woman standing before her had seen the truth and decided to survive it. When she finally spoke again, her words came out low and desperate. "You can't win this way, Bella. People will talk. They'll find out what you did." "Let them," I said. "They've talked my whole life. The difference now is that I don't care." I walked past her, ready to leave, but her voice stopped me. "He won't forgive you," she said. I turned. "Who?" "Your father," she said. "You think he's on your side, but when this hits, when the lawyers come, when the bank freezes our accounts, he'll blame you for everything." I studied her, realizing that even now, she couldn't help weaponizing love. "Maybe he will," I said. "But at least he'll finally know the truth." I got into my car and drove off, leaving her standing there in the dark, a queen without a kingdom. The next few days passed in a blur, calls from lawyers, letters from the bank confirming the property sale, and one silent text from my father. "It's done." I didn't reply. I didn't need to. For once, my life wasn't about fixing anyone else's chaos. It was about rebuilding mine. I spent my mornings walking through the quiet streets near my house, breathing air that didn't taste like guilt. I started sleeping again, eating again, living again. But freedom, I learned, has its own kind of loneliness. For weeks, I didn't hear from Nyla, and I didn't reach out either. I told myself she needed space, that maybe silence was its own form of healing. Then one afternoon, there was a soft knock at my door. When I opened it, she stood there holding a small box wrapped in brown paper. Her eyes were tired but clear. "Can I come in?" she asked. I nodded. She sat at the kitchen table, fidgeting with the box. "I found this while cleaning out Mom's things," she said. "I thought it should be yours." I peeled back the paper and froze. Inside was a pocket watch, our grandfather's. The one I'd begged to keep years ago, but Mom had given to Nyla because she'd appreciate it more. My throat tightened. "Why are you giving me this?" "Because it was always meant for you," she said quietly. "And because I owe you more than I can repay." I looked at her then, really looked at her, not as the golden child or the rival, but as another casualty of the same broken system we were born into. "You don't owe me anything," I said. "Just learn from it. Don't become them," she smiled sadly. "Too late for that, maybe. But I'm trying." She hesitated before adding, "I heard about the property sale. You could have kept it all, you know. No one would have blamed you." I shook my head. "I didn't want their house, Nyla. I wanted peace." She nodded slowly, tears filling her eyes. "You got it," she whispered. "And maybe someday I will too." We talked for hours after that, about our childhood, about Drew, about how everything we thought was love had really just been control disguised as care. When she left, the air felt different, lighter, like something toxic had finally been cleared. She paused at the door, her hand on the frame. "What are you going to do now?" she asked. "Start over," I said simply. "And this time on my own terms," she smiled faintly. "You always were stronger than the rest of us." Then she was gone. That night, I sat on my porch with my journal and the pocket watch ticking softly in my hand. I thought about the years I'd spent chasing approval that was never real, about the endless cycle of giving and apologizing, about how easily love had been weaponized in our home. I thought about my father's quiet guilt, my mother's obsession with appearances, my sister's fragile attempt at redemption. For so long, I'd believed my worth was tied to how much pain I could carry for other people. But sitting there under the stars, I finally understood that walking away wasn't cruelty. It was survival. I opened my journal and began to write, my words slow and deliberate, the ink bleeding softly into the page. The softest revenge is peace and quiet. I closed the notebook, feeling the truth of it settle in my bones. I didn't want revenge, not really. I wanted to live without flinching, to wake up without dread, to look in the mirror and see someone whole, not a patchwork of guilt and sacrifice. The next morning, I drove to the title office to finalize the sale. The clerk handed me a check, a fraction of what I'd lost, but it didn't matter. It was symbolic. It was closure. On the way home, I stopped at the bank and opened 2 small accounts. One for me to start fresh, the other under Nyla's children's names, marked Education Fund. When the clerk asked if I wanted to add a note, I said yes. I wrote, "For their future, not their inheritance." Later that week, I got one last message from my father. We signed everything. "The house is yours if you want it." I stared at the screen for a long time before replying, "I don't. Just take care of yourself." That was the last time we spoke. My mother never called again. Rumor had it she moved in with her sister out of state, away from the whispers and the shame she'd built for herself. Sometimes I wonder if she ever looks back and realizes the kingdom she guarded so fiercely was made of paper. Maybe she does. Maybe she doesn't, but either way, I stopped looking back. Months passed, and my home began to transform. The walls I'd once seen as reminders of exhaustion became symbols of freedom. I repainted, replanted, rebuilt. Each nail I drove into wood felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. The neighbors started waving again, not out of curiosity but respect. People had seen the headlines, the viral posts, the family's fall from grace. But no one mentioned it. They just smiled and said, "Morning, Bella," like maybe they understood what starting over costs. One evening, as the sky turned gold, I sat on the porch again with my journal open, the air still except for the hum of crickets. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was full, alive. I traced my finger over the pocket watch, over its small scratches and worn edges. It wasn't just an heirloom now. It was proof that time can wound, but it can also heal. I thought about calling Nyla, about telling her how the garden was finally blooming again, how the air felt different. But instead I just smiled. Some stories don't need to be retold. Some peace doesn't need witnesses. I took a deep breath, letting the quiet wrap around me. The weight I'd carried for decades, the responsibility, the guilt, the desperate need to be enough, was gone. In its place was something I'd never felt before, stillness. A kind of happiness that didn't come from anyone else's approval, just mine. I leaned back, closed my eyes, and whispered to the night, "It's over." And for the first time, it really was. The softest revenge is peace and quiet,